Hello, I'm Natalie Fast, and with me today is John Hyler, Natixis Global Asset Management's President and CEO for the Americas and Asia. Natixis Global Asset Management has just released the results of its most recent global survey of individual investor attitudes. This is part of their continuing Investor Insights research, which looks at 7,000 investors in 17 countries. John, thanks so much for joining us today to go through the research.
My pleasure.
So let's just dive straight in with some of the headline stats. They seem to reveal that investors are optimistic about their returns this year, but that's not quite in line with their risk tolerance. Why is this?
Yeah, return expectations are increasing, but so is the conflict that investors are feeling and the contradiction that investors have with getting the returns they need, but not really understanding the risks that they would have to take to get those returns. Investors believe they need between 9 and 10% before inflation type returns. Well, 9 and 10% before inflation equals to anywhere 11 to 15 to 16% in a real rate of return. And that's an extremely aggressive number to try to reach. This is the whole difficulty or contradictions that the average investor around the world has, is they need higher returns, they expect higher returns, but they're also conflicted about taking risk. And should they be preserving capital? Should they be protecting their principal more? So without risk, you don't get return. And I think that's one of the big points we've gotten out of the survey.
It's interesting that you mention risk because the survey highlights the fact that investors are anxious about risks, geopolitical and macroeconomic factors affecting their portfolios. And yet their expectations for the returns of their portfolios seem unrealistically high. How can these become more realistic?
Well, I think education is going to be key to all of this. I think financial planning, I think financial advisors, asset management firms, financial services firms need to work together to help investors understand risk. I mean, basically, our survey showed that 57% of individual investors have no financial goals. 67% have no financial plan. And then 77% are relying on gut instincts when investing. And that's no way to invest in the marketplace. So you first have these almost unrealistic expectations of a return you need, tying in with this misunderstanding of what a financial goal is or a financial plan. And then finally, you have the whole misunderstanding of risk and principal protection.
With so many people not having financial goals or plans, how is this affecting their retirement planning?
Well, when you look at retirement, it is the #1 goal of investors worldwide, but they're not really prepared. And I think to me, that's a very, very big challenge. Individuals say they need 63% of pre-retirement income. Well, that's short of the 75 to 80% that's traditionally assumed. So how do they make up for that discrepancy between 63% of pre-retirement income all the way up to 75, 80%. And that's a challenge for us, that's a challenge for them. It's a challenge for the whole industry to educate clients on what are realistic expectations for retirement, how much money they should be putting aside toward retirement, and then where should they be investing to meet the goals to hit that 75, 80% traditional retirement income that investors are going to need.
Once they have these concrete goals and plans, how aware are they of the nuts and bolts of their investment portfolio? 69% of your respondents seem savvy and aware that traditional stock and bond portfolios might not get them the returns they expect. Does that tell us that investors are more open to the role that alternatives can play in their investment portfolios?
Investors recognize the challenges presented by the modern markets, but they need help understanding alternatives. We've talked about building more durable portfolios. That is, portfolios that can help clients minimize or at least understand risk in the marketplace, because to get return, you need to take risk. I think as an industry, we can be better at educating investors on not only using traditional methods of investing, but also the new alternatives. And one of the things that was amazing about the survey is 76% of investors said they would consider alternatives if their advisor recommended them. So that's a big opportunity that advisors and asset management firms have. Basically, clients are trying to figure out how to get the return with minimizing or being able to help marginalize or at least manage risk and volatility as much as they can.
John, on that note, we are out of time. Thank you very much for taking the time to share these survey findings with us.
My pleasure, and again, always good to talk to you and your audience. Thank you.
I look forward to hearing more investor insight findings from Natixis Global Asset Management in the future.